So we have here the derivative of the stator self-inductance. Then the next thing that we have to determine is the derivative of the rotor self-inductance. So rotor self-inductance is given by the expression 30 plus 10 cos 2 theta here, and its derivative is calculated. Then we go to the next part, which says derivative of the mutual inductance, and here we see this is the graphical expression representation of the derivative of the mutual inductance. Now after having calculated the derivative of this mutual inductance, the next thing is to determine the stator current. So if you see here, the magnitude of the stator current is 10 ampere and it's of sine nature. So we just find out the current. So the values are filled over here, and the frequency of the stator current was 10 radian, it was 5 radians per second. So with that we have calculated the variation of the stator current, Then we go to the next step, and here we have, it says that we have to calculate the rotor current. So the rotor current had a magnitude of 3 amperes. Its waveform was sinusoidal, and also its frequency was equal to 1 radian per second. So its magnitude was 5 ampere, its frequency was 1 radian per second, and it had a sinusoidal variation. So here we see the rotor current. So after the rotor current is done, then we come to the next very important part, and here it says that calculate the stator reluctance torque. So what was stator reluctance torque? So if we go here and if we see the torque equation, the stator reluctance torque is I stator, or square of the stator current, divided by 2 into rate of change of stator self-inductance. So we have calculated all those values. We have calculated the derivative of the stator self-inductance. We know the stator current, which is given over here. So the calculation of the stator reluctance torque gives us this waveform. Now if we see here, if we integrate this waveform over a time period, that is a couple of rotor rotations, then we see that the average value is equal to 0. So the average value of the stator reluctance torque produced here is 0, and that is true because we have seen in our discussion already that for the stator reluctance torque to exist, to have a non-zero average value, the frequency of the stator current should be equal to the angular speed of the rotor. Here the angular speed of the rotor is 3 radians per second, and the frequency of the stator current is 5 radians per second. Since it does not satisfy that condition, we have a 0 value of stator reluctance torque. Now we go to the next step. So in the next step it says calculate the rotor reluctance torque. So rotor reluctance torque, if we see here in expression 4.17, it is equal to square of the rotor current divided by 2 into rate of change of rotor self-inductance. So we have calculated rate of change of rotor self-inductance. It is given here in the column, in the row number 3. We have the rotor current in row number 4, and now using these quantities, if I calculate my rotor reluctance torque, then I get the waveform as shown here, and if I take the average value of this waveform, I am again going to get a 0 average torque. So my average reluctance torque due to the rotor is also 0, and this is also due to the fact that my rotor speed is 3 radians per second, whereas the rotor current is 1 radian per second. So the rotor speed is not equal to rotor current frequency, and hence my average reluctance torque due to rotor is also 0. Then what we do is we go to the next step, and it says calculate the interaction torque. And if we see here in the expression 4.17, the interaction torque is product of the stator and the rotor current multiplied by rate of change of stator and rotor mutual inductance, the mutual inductance between the stator and the rotor coils. And here we have all the values, derivative of the mutual inductance, stator current, rotor current, and if I fill the interaction torque and if I integrate that over a time period that we have over here, this is again going to be 0. It is 0 because we can see from our discussion that it does not satisfy any one of the 4 conditions for the supply frequencies, and those 4 conditions were given here in the expression. So neither of the 4 conditions given here in bullet point 1 are being satisfied by the current by the 3 frequencies, that is the rotor frequency, rotor speed of angular speed of rotation of the rotor, stator current frequency, and rotor current frequency. Now we will see immediately the difference of how the average torque is produced. So let's consider a scenario, okay, a very simple scenario where we say that my rotor speed is equal to the difference between the stator supply frequency and rotor supply frequency. So rotor speed is equal to omega SC minus omega RC. So let's try to give this condition here. So let's say my rotor speed is 3 radians per second, and I want a condition where my rotor speed is equal to stator current frequency minus rotor current frequency. To achieve that, I don't change my stator current frequency, but I change my rotor current frequency to 2. So my stator current frequency is 5, my rotor current frequency is 2. So if I take the difference between the two, I get 3, and my rotor speed, angular speed of rotation, happens to be 3, and let the initial rotor angle be 45 degree. So let's do some calculation over here. So we'll go through the entire process. So we first fill in the angles, rotor angles in radians and degrees. So we go to the next step, which is the stator self-inductance. Nothing changes here because it's only the current's magnitude we have changed. That has no impact on stator self-inductance whatsoever. Similarly, it has no impact on the rotor self-inductance whatsoever. And then we have the mutual inductance, and then we have the derivative of the stator self-inductance, and then we have the derivative of the rotor self-inductance, and then we have the derivative of the mutual inductance, and then we have the stator current. So we didn't change anything in the stator current, so this is the waveform of the stator current. And then we have the rotor current. So we have changed the frequency of the rotor a bit. So in the previous example it was 1 radian per second, now it's 2 radians per second. And now we calculate first the stator reluctance torque. So if you see here, the stator reluctance torque is again going to be 0 because the frequency of the stator current is not same as the angular speed of the rotor. So angular speed of the rotor is 3 and the stator current frequency is 5 radians per second. So they are not equal, and hence the reluctance torque produced by the stator is going to be 0. So we go to the next step, rotor reluctance torque. Its average value, if we integrate that over a time period, this is also going to be 0 because our rotor current frequency is 2, but the rotor's angular speed is 3 radians per second. So they are not equal. But if we see the interaction torque now, if I integrate this curve over the entire period, it is going to be a non-zero value. The value is going to be negative, so it means that the machine is rotating in the anti-clockwise direction. So a positive and a negative value means the machine rotates in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction depending on the convention. But from this graph it's very clear. If we take the integration over a time period of the torque, then we are going to get a non-zero average torque. So we see here that how one can understand the principles, and even this can be further enhanced. So what I can say is that I give my rotor current to be 0. So in this case there is not going to be any interaction torque because rotor current is 0. Okay, interaction torque is a product of the stator current and rotor current. Since there is no rotor current, so the interaction torque is going to be 0, the rotor reluctance torque is going to be 0, and just we have the stator current. So in this case we will have no reluctance torque due to the stator. The reason being that the stator frequency is not equal to the rotor's rotational speed. If I make my stator current frequency equal to 3, then let's see what happens. So I'll just go a bit faster with that, and we come now to the stator current, then we come to the rotor current. It is 0, there is no rotor current. And now if you see here, stator reluctance torque, it is going to be a non-zero value. So if I integrate this over a time period, then I am going to get a non-zero average reluctance torque due to the stator, whereas my rotor reluctance torque is going to be 0 since there is no current over there. And if I go to the interaction torque, it's again going to be 0 because there is no rotor current. So actually this exercise, one can try different variants of this exercise, which is again available in our ebook, and see that how one can validate and verify the theories that we have discussed so far. Now after having done that, what we can do is we will quickly jump over to the section where we will be discussing the equivalent circuit. Now to discuss the equivalent circuit of the machine, we will consider a two-phase non-salient pole machine. So here we can see that the stator has two coils, okay, and the rotor has two coils, A and B phases. So coil A and coil B. So A represents A phase and B represents B phase. And if you see this figure very carefully, then the phases of the stator are displaced by 90 degree in space with respect to each other. Similarly, the phases of rotor are displaced by 90 degree with respect to each other. And here we see the variation of the mutual inductances. So LASAR is the mutual inductance between the stator and the rotor coil. LAS BR is the mutual inductance between the A phase of the stator and B phase of the rotor. Similarly, LBS is the mutual AR is the mutual inductance between the B phase of the stator and A phase of the rotor, and LBS BR is the mutual inductance between the B phase of the stator and B phase of the rotor. And the variation of the mutual inductance is given here in expression 4.34. And here we have some animation which explains the flux linked by the coils. And here in this box, actually, we can see in detail that how the mutual inductance varies. So we will not discuss that in detail. It's there in our book. So it's just an explanation of that. Why do we have a certain variation or the nature of variation of the mutual inductances? So it's explained really in big detail over here. However, in this case, to find out the torque and eventually the equivalent circuit, it's important to find out what is the flux linkage. So since there are 4 coils here, there would be 4 flux linkages. So let's see the flux linkage due to the phase A of the stator, which is given by expression 4.35A. So this flux linkage is equal to self-inductance of the stator multiplied by the phase A current of the stator plus the mutual inductance between phase A of the stator and phase A of the rotor into the phase A current of the rotor plus the mutual inductance between phase A of the stator and phase B of the rotor into the current in the phase B of the rotor. So this is the expression of the mutual inductance for phase A. The coil in the phase A will link this flux. Similarly, the coil in phase B of the stator would link the flux given by expression 4.35B, and the expressions 4.35C and 35D show the flux linked by the phase A and phase B coils of the rotor. So we have 4 flux linkage terms, and we have also seen that how the mutual inductances vary in expression 4.34. So now if we substitute these variations of the mutual inductances in expressions 4.35A to 4.35D, we get the flux linkage given in expressions 4.36A to 4.36D. And if we substitute this flux linkage in the torque equation. So we are going to get a torque equation given by equation 4.37. Now after having obtained the torque equation, the next point that we do is we assume that the stator of the phase A of the stator is given a current I max S cos omega SCT. That means the current given to the phase A of the stator has a frequency of omega SC and its magnitude is I max S. Similarly, the current given to the phase B of the stator has a magnitude of I max S and its frequency is omega SC. Similarly, the current given to the phase A and phase B of the rotor has a magnitude of I max R and a frequency of omega RC. And if we look very carefully, the current given to the phase A and B of the stator are displaced by 90 degree in time, because phase A gets a cosine current whereas phase B of the stator gets a sine current. Similarly, the phase A and phase B currents of the rotor are displaced by 90 degree. Phase A current of the rotor is cosine in nature and phase B current of the rotor is sinusoidal in nature. So these are all displaced by 90 degree in time. And if I replace my currents IAS, IBS, IAR and IBR in equation 4.37 by these values of the current given in equation 4.38a to 4.38d, then I get this torque equation, which is 4.40. So it's for a two-phase system. We have done a similar exercise for a three-phase single-phase system. Now we are doing it for a two-phase system, and this expression 4.40 can be simplified and can be written here as given in 4.41. So if you see, the torque given by expression 4.41 is the instantaneous torque. To find out the average value of torque, one has to integrate this expression of torque over a time period. Since it's a sinusoidal function, if you integrate any sinusoidal function over a time period, its average value is going to be 0. However, to get a non-zero average value, we can make the coefficients of time equal to 0. That means if we have a condition where omega R is equal to omega SC minus omega RC, then we can make the torque equation given in 4.41 independent of time. And if I integrate that equation, which is independent of time, over a time period, I'm going to get a non-zero value of average torque given by expression 4.43. Now if we look at this expression 4.43 very carefully, it is very similar to the expression of torque for induction machine and for the synchronous machine that we saw at the very beginning of this webinar, today's webinar. And this is the expression which is valid for both synchronous and asynchronous machine. Now let's have a quick look at the synchronous machine. In case of a synchronous machine, we feed the rotor by a DC source, a direct current source. Hence, my omega RC, that means the frequency of the rotor current, is equal to 0. So if my frequency of the rotor current is equal to 0, then from the condition given in 4.42, it is necessary that to produce non-zero average torque, my rotor speed omega R should be equal to the speed of the stator supply frequency. And this is why we have in synchronous machines that produce torque only at synchronous speed. As long as the speed of the rotor is equal to speed of the supply frequency, the synchronous machine produces torque, and that comes from expression 4.42. And in case of a synchronous machine, since we have a DC current excitation on the rotor, so frequency of the rotor current is 0, and expression 4.42 gives us the condition for non-zero average torque, and that condition is that omega R, the rotor's angular speed, should be equal to supply frequency of the stator current. And the torque expression, so if we keep on doing all the mathematical manipulation, we find out that the torque expression can be given by this equation 4.50. So the torque produced is given here in 4.40, and this is the torque equation that we saw in the beginning of the chapter 8, in the beginning of this webinar. So this is how actually the torque equation is derived. It's for a two-phase machine. We have seen how it can be derived for a single-phase machine. Now we have seen how it can be done for a two-phase machine. This can be extended to three-phase machine as well. Now we come to the most important point which I told you, which was about the equivalent circuit. So in case of a synchronous machine which is excited by a DC source on the rotor, so there are three flux linkages. Flux linked by the phase A of the stator, phase B of the rotor phase B of the stator, and the coil on the rotor. So it's a two-phase synchronous machine that we are considering. So now if I have all the three flux linkage equations, then what I can do is I can write down the voltage balance. Now the voltage applied to phase A of the stator is equal to drop across the resistance of phase A plus the rate of change of flux linked by the phase A coils. Similarly, my voltage applied to phase B is equal to drop across the resistance of the phase B plus the rate of change of flux linked by the phase B coils. So this is the voltage equation that I have for the phase A and for phase B. Now if I assume that my large synchronous machine has a very negligible stator coil resistance or the stator phase resistance, so I can replace this R by 0, so I can neglect my stator resistance. So if I neglect my stator resistance, then my stator applied voltage of phase A is equal to rate of change of flux linked by phase A, and similarly my applied voltage to the phase B, VBS, is equal to rate of change of flux linked by the phase B. And if I substitute the values of lambda AS and lambda BS from B3.2A and B3.2B, then I get my voltage equation. So here I have my voltage equations for phase A and phase B. So after differentiating the expressions given in B3.5, I get the instantaneous expression for the voltage VAS and VBS, and we consider only VAS for our further analysis. So my voltage applied to phase A reduces to the expression given in equation B3.6. Here if I see B3.6, it consists of sine quantities, and if I want to convert that into cosine, I add an angle 90 degree here and convert that into B3.7. So here I have the phasor representation, and in this phasor representation we can see that the second quantity in the phasor representation in B3.7, it is an induced EMF EF, and that induced EMF has a magnitude of speed of the stator current into the mutual inductance into the current through the rotor, that is B3.8B. And if I want, I can write down my equation number 4.B3.7 in terms of phasor, and the phasor representation is given in equation number 4.B3.9. And this phasor representation, from this phasor representation we can see that there is only one circuit, one equivalent circuit which can satisfy equation 4.B3.9, and that equivalent circuit is shown here in figure 4.B3.1. So what, and this is the equivalent circuit of a synchronous machine. Here we have done it for a two-phase machine. For a three-phase machine it's the same because it's the per phase equivalent circuit. So here we see that it's possible to derive the equivalent circuit of the machines from the first principles of flux linkages. And similarly in this box 4.4, which is again a part of the book, we can see that how the equivalent circuit of an induction machine can be derived, and this is again from the flux linkage and the voltage equations. So in many books we see that people mention that the equivalent circuit of an induction machine is a generalized form of a transformer and so on, but that analogy is very weak. Transformer is a static device, there is no motion involved, whereas induction machine is a rotating machine. And here the equivalent circuit looks very much similar to a transformer, but it's not derived from the transformer. It is derived actually from the first principles, and that is explained in detail in the book. So people who are interested, they can go through the book and have a look at it. And this is the equivalent circuit of the induction machine that has been derived from the flux linkage principle. So in today's webinar, we have seen some very important aspects. One major aspect that we have seen is that to produce non-zero average torque in any machine, there is a certain condition that has to be applied to the stator rotating stator current frequency, rotor current frequency, and the rotor's angular speed, and also the initial angle between the stator and the rotor field should be equal to, it should not be equal to 0. So these are the two major conditions that have to be satisfied to produce non-zero average torque. And we also saw briefly that how one can actually derive the equivalent circuits. We saw that in bit detail for a synchronous machine. It can be done for an induction machine as well. Now, just for fun, we also have quizzes which can be given to the students to check whether the students have understood the concepts properly or not. And once we log in into the quizzes, so the chapters that we have discussed today are 3 and 4 in detail. So there are around 8 easy questions. So I'll set the quiz for 5 questions. Let's set the time for the quiz to 5. Its difficulty level, we can keep it easy. 4 marks for correct answer, 1 marks, negative marks for wrong answer. And then let's start. So let's say I enter my name, so I am the student. I enter my roll number and I submit it. So the quiz starts. So I have 5 minutes. Here we have the first question. So I'm just choosing my answers randomly. It's just to demonstrate that a quiz is a part of an important part of the evaluation of the student, and it's a part of the complete e-learning process, e-learning environment that we have developed. So if you see here, out of 5 questions, I didn't answer anyone correct. All questions were answered wrong, and hence a negative score of -5. So this quiz actually does not end over here. It has another interesting feature where one can actually see the performance of the student in detail. So the teacher or the evaluator actually can go to the analysis part and then check the answer script of each and every student. And here you see the correct answer to the first question was D, but I answered B, and the question was from chapter 3. So similarly, such analysis is given, and the teacher can understand and can find out that what are the weak areas that a student has. So it's a complete e-learning package with some ideas and concepts which are hard to find in most of the textbooks that are available in the market. So it's a very comprehensive tool and has a lot of animations and a lot of other interesting features. So I hope that such kind of a learning material with a lot of 3D animations, interactive exercises and so on will be helpful to the students in the classrooms, and will also help the teachers to clear the concepts in a more better and lucid manner. So with this, I would like to end today's webinar, and I thank you all for your patience and your time. Thank you very much, and see you next time.